newspaper, after the defeat, I'll just read 2 paragraphs out of this. If any comfort is to be gained from this miserable failure on the part of the friends of progress to have voted, it lies in the fact that the proposition obtained a majority of 429. By the result of yesterday's election, Wheeling is counted among the cities that set their faces against progress. It also submits to the domination of a class that has retarded its growth in the past, whose methods are unreasonable and prejudicial to the common welfare of all, with small chance of emancipation in the future. You can see so where does that leave us then? Well, it leaves us with a community that a significant portion of people want a library, but there's no mechanism to build it. In 1905, the library then was in the Masonic facilities, and they were going to jack up the rent. It was a very small, cramped facilities, and there was great consternation about, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. It's going to be too expensive. We need a library. So then, in 1909, the Board of Education again contacts Carnegie to see if he will still provide some money. They had purchased the Maxwell property being where Maxwell Center is right now, and also where Old Wheeling High School was and where the old library was, that whole range of properties there. They had purchased it, put the high school in the library, and they were going to do this without a bond levy. They were going to do it without an election. So in 1909, the Carnegie people say the $75,000 still there. All you need to do is meet our conditions, terms, and you can still get money. But again, the unions rose up, the tradespeople rose up and said, we can't have this. And so in 1910, the Board of Education said, that's it. We're not going to try this through the Carnegie grants. It's just too contentious. So they decided that they would build it themselves and provide for it themselves. So on March the 3rd, 1910, the Board of Education accepted Charlie Bates' plans for a new public library. Charles Bates, prominent architect in Wheeling, known for what other great facility in town? The Capitol Theater, yes, the Capitol Theater. This contract was not awarded without contention. The other very prominent architectural firm in Wheeling, Ferris and Giese and Ferris, objected to Bates getting the contract. They filed a formal protest, but the Board of Education gave it to Bates anyway. I don't know, Gene, you know, is Bates, are any of his files anywhere in the depository somewhere? And it would be interesting to see how he came up with the design, because many people, when they come into Wheeling and looked at the old library, thought it was a Carnegie library. It looks like a Carnegie library. It looks very much like all the other Carnegie libraries. Of course, if God forbid, if you ever said anyone, particularly the labor person in Wheeling, I see you have a Carnegie library, and it's the equivalent of calling an Englishman a Scotsman or a Scotsman an Englishman here. And you get spat upon. But anyway, they accepted his plans for the new public library, and they opened the library very quietly down in the center of Wheeling, where Bennett Square is right now, on January 9th, 1911. That is Charlie Bates, by the way. And so this is what the building looked like. The description: 2-story red brick building, doorway framed by marble Corinthian columns with a pediment, and a decorative cornice encircling the building around the first story. I won't read that all out to you, but you notice that at this time, when you walked in the door, when you walked in where it would have been the main entrance, see what you saw there was the circulation desk. This started as a closed stack library. In other words, you had to go in to the library and present a request for a book, and someone on the library staff got the book for you. You were not allowed back into the shelving area to get your own books. When the library opened, also to the right, they intended a children's literature room, and to the left, I believe, is where the reading room was. Yeah, left is the reading room. This is the reading room in 1911. Tables and chairs. This is a big improvement from that one-room facility that they had had in the Masonic building. And in 1919, the librarian convinced the library board to change to an open stack system, to open up the shelving so that people could go and use the books throughout the library themselves. Now, also, part of the library in 1920, Sally Maxwell Bennett, remember we talked about the Bennetts and the Maxwell property. She had been traveling throughout Europe and had mementos and decided to present them to the library to set up a museum. And she did so. And so she said she wanted to be in memory of her father, who was on the Board of Education before his death. Eventually, these artifacts in the museum were removed and either given back to the Bennett family at Willow Glen or sent to the New York City Art Gallery or Ogley Institute. I'm not sure. I've never actually asked the Ogley, do you know which of the artifacts are from Sally Maxwell Bennett? I don't know if they would know that at this point, but in one of the old photographs, I blew that up, it's a little bit fuzzy, but this was the sign in front of the library which actually said Public Library and Museum. Then also around this time there was a statue donated to the library. That was the statue of Ethan Allen. It was donated by A. Walker Peterson, that's Mr. Peterson up in the corner there, who wanted to present something that could be, this manuscript could be presented in the library. And it wasn't until the other day that I put together how all this got sorted out, because I had read before that he was on his travels in Europe and saw the statue of Ethan Allen. And he's like, Europe, Ethan Allen, you know, where? Well, what? Something doesn't compute here, something doesn't sound right. Actually, the artist, and this is a replica of the Ethan Allen statue. It's in Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C. The artist was living in Florence, Italy, and that's how he was an American who had emigrated over to Italy and did his work there, and so that's how a guy from Wheeling saw a statue of Ethan Allen in Italy, bought it, and had it shipped back to Wheeling for placement in the public library. And part of the inscription on it is this ideal of one of the heroes of War of Independence given to the Wheeling Public Library in memory of Dr. Daniel Peterson, Sergeant's Mate, Colonel Stark's Regiment, Colonial Forces, and his son W.F. Peterson Sr., who came to this community in 1824. I love this picture looking down, and I remember as a kid seeing this statue of Ethan Allen. It was huge, at least it seemed like huge to me. And there's in the corner here is the Statuary Hall. You can see a frontal view of it. But this is from up on one of the balconies of the library looking down, and now my recollection was he was a little bit further forward, and I think maybe he got moved at one point. And this is Larkin Mead, the American sculptor who emigrated to Italy, who sold the and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. I'm going to move on a little bit later, but the statue was sold. Ultimately, it was sold. The feeling was there was no room for it here in this library. Sean and I were talking earlier. This library was built in the early 70s. My suspicion was early 70s. You remember the lime green, the orange colors over here. It was a hip 70s library, and probably people thought, we don't want a double statue of Ethan Allen in our hip new library. I think we could fit out here in the hallway somewhere or something.